Have you ever noticed how the people who need connection the most are the loneliest? You think you're being warm, available, caring, but people keep pulling away. You tell yourself they're just busy or that you haven't found your people yet. But here's what's really happening. Your desperation is creating an energetic repulsion field that pushes away the very connection you crave. As Carl Jung warned us, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And the irritation people feel around neediness isn't about them. It's about the unconscious energy you're projecting. This isn't about being unlucky in relationships. And this is about how attachment anxiety transforms you into an emotional vampire without you realizing it. And your need creates a psychic undertow that pulls people into caretaking roles they never signed up for. And if you can handle the discomfort of seeing this clearly, how your longing for connection actually destroys it, everything changes. Because the people who understand this paradox become magnetically attractive. They draw others in effortlessly while you're still wondering why everyone keeps their distance. Let's destroy some comfortable lies you've been telling yourself. You think availability equals love. You think being needed means being valued. You think showing up consistently will eventually be rewarded with the deep connection you crave. These aren't just wrong, they're psychologically backwards. When you make yourself constantly available, you're not offering love. You're offering convenience. When you position yourself as the person who's always there, you're not creating intimacy. You're creating a transaction where others get their emotional needs met while giving nothing back. The brutal truth: people avoid those who need them most because neediness feels like quicksand. It pulls you down into someone else's emotional void, and every healthy person's nervous system recognizes this as a threat to their own well-being. As Jung observed, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and what you haven't accepted is how your persona of the caring, available person is actually a sophisticated manipulation designed to control others into staying close. And your helpfulness isn't generosity, it's a strategy. You've created a false self that performs availability because you believe love must be earned through usefulness. But here's the disturbing part. This performance requires others to remain somewhat broken, needy, or dependent. If they become whole and self-sufficient, your value proposition disappears. This is why you unconsciously choose relationships with people who have problems you can solve, drama you can manage, or wounds you can heal. You tell yourself you're attracted to their potential, but really you're attracted to their need for you. Because if they didn't need you, would they choose you? Your entire relationship strategy is built on a foundation of scarcity, the belief that you don't have enough inherent worth to be chosen simply for who you are. So you become indispensable through function instead of irreplaceable through essence. And the people around you feel this. They sense the invisible contract you're trying to enforce. I'll be here for you, and in exchange, you'll need me. It feels suffocating because it is suffocating. It's love with strings attached, even when you swear there are no strings. The most self-aware people start avoiding you because they recognize the energetic weight of your unspoken expectations. The less aware ones take advantage of your availability until they find someone who doesn't require them to feel guilty for receiving. But this is just the surface. The real truth about why this happens is darker than you think. Here's what's actually happening in the invisible realm of psychic energy, and why your attempts at connection create the opposite effect. Every human interaction involves an exchange of energy. When you approach relationships from a place of lack, you become what psychologists call an energy drain. Someone who takes more than they give, even when you're seemingly giving everything. The mechanism works like this. Your attachment anxiety creates a constant low-level panic that broadcasts, "I'm not okay unless you're here." This energy signature is exhausting to be around because it puts pressure on others to regulate your emotional state. You're outsourcing your inner stability to their presence and attention. As Viktor Frankl said, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. But you've surrendered that freedom. You've made other people responsible for your emotional well-being, and they can feel the weight of that responsibility. Neuroscience backs this up. Mirror neurons cause us to unconsciously absorb the emotional states of those around us. When someone is desperate for connection, their nervous system is in a state of activation, fight or flight, disguised as friendship. Other people's nervous systems respond by either trying to fix you, which exhausts them, or creating distance to protect their own equilibrium. This is why people can spend hours with you and leave feeling drained, even when you were positive and giving the entire time. Your energy was saying, "Please don't leave me," while your words were saying, "How can I help you?" The manipulation is unconscious, but devastating. You've learned to make yourself useful as a survival strategy, but usefulness creates conditional relationships. People start to see you as a function rather than a person. He one who listens, the one who helps, the one who's always available. And here's the trap. The more you give from this place of need, the more people take. Not because they're selfish, but because your energy is teaching them that this is how the relationship works. You give, they receive. You're available, they benefit. You solve, they consume. This creates what psychologists call learned helplessness in your relationships. People become less capable around you because you're always stepping in to handle things. Your helpfulness actually disempowers the people you claim to love. Meanwhile, you're building resentment without admitting it. Part of you keeps score of everything you do, expecting it to be repaid in love, attention, or commitment. When that payment doesn't come, or doesn't come in the form you expected, you feel used, unappreciated, taken for granted. But the most dangerous part isn't what others do to you. It's what you don't realize you're doing to yourself. Time for the shadow work that will disturb you most, admitting what you're really doing when you make yourself constantly available. You tell yourself you're being kind, but really you're trying to control outcomes. You tell yourself you're being generous, but really you're making investments with expected returns. You tell yourself you're being loving, but really you're trying to make yourself indispensable so people can't leave. Your availability isn't generosity. It's a sophisticated form of insurance against abandonment. Jung was ruthless about this. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And your unconscious is directing you to recreate the same pattern in every relationship. Prove your worth through service, then feel abandoned when people don't reciprocate your level of investment. The people who drain you the most are reflecting something you refuse to see about yourself. They're showing you what it looks like to be in relationship with someone who operates from scarcity, who needs more than they can give back, who makes love conditional on being needed. Here's what you don't want to admit. Part of you is attracted to broken people because their brokenness guarantees they'll need you. You don't actually want them to become fully self-sufficient, because then what would be your role? Your identity is built around being the healer, the helper, the one who saves. But healing people isn't loving them. It's making them dependent on your ability to fix what's wrong with them. And secretly, unconsciously, you have an investment in them staying somewhat broken, because their wholeness threatens your sense of purpose. This is why your relationships feel more like projects than partnerships. You're not connecting with people as they are. You're connecting with who you think they could become with your he's, LP. This isn't intimacy. This is control disguised as potential. The shadow gets darker. You've learned to use your own wounds as currency, your past trauma, your current struggles, your emotional needs become tools for creating intimacy. You bond through shared brokenness instead of shared strength. People can sense when someone is relating to them through their wounds rather than their wholeness. It feels diminishing, like being seen as a collection of problems rather than a complete person. This is why healthier people start to avoid you, not because they lack compassion, but because they recognize you're trying to connect through dysfunction. Your victim stories, your emotional unavailability disguised as overwhelm, your constant need for reassurance, these aren't authentic vulnerability. They're manipulation tactics designed to keep people engaged in your emotional drama. And the most disturbing part? You've become addicted to the intensity of these dysfunctional connections. Healthy, stable relationships feel boring to you because they don't feed your trauma bond addiction. You mistake drama for depth, crisis for connection, need for love. You create situations where people have to choose between their own well-being and your emotional needs. Then you act hurt when they choose themselves. But that's not betrayal. That's health. And your inability to celebrate their healthy choice reveals how invested you are in their dysfunction. The hardest truth, every person who has pulled away from you was probably protecting themselves from being consumed by your emotional hunger. They weren't abandoning you. They were refusing to be devoured by your need. Now that you can see the game clearly, here's how everything changes. Here's the counterintuitive truth that will transform your relationships forever. The less you need people, the more they're drawn to you. The more complete you are alone, the more others want to share your completeness. Real attraction isn't about being needed, it's about being whole. People are magnetically drawn to those who are content with or without them, because that contentment gives others permission to be authentic rather than performative. When you stop trying to heal people, they start healing themselves around you. When you stop making yourself indispensable, you become irreplaceable. When you stop managing other people's emotions, they start managing their own. This isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about relating from fullness instead of emptiness. It's about offering your presence as a gift rather than using it as leverage. It's about loving people enough to let them be responsible for their own emotional experience. The strategic framework is simple, but requires complete rewiring of your nervous system. First, become genuinely okay with being alone, not just tolerating solitude, but enjoying your own company so much that other people's presence becomes a bonus rather than a necessity. Second, stop solving problems you weren't asked to solve. Let people have their struggles without rushing in to fix them. Your job isn't to prevent their discomfort, it's to trust their capacity to handle it. Third, make your yes precious by saying no regularly. When your availability is rare, it becomes valuable. When it's constant, it becomes expected and eventually resented. Fourth, relate to people's strength, not their weakness. See their capacity, not their deficits. Talk to the part of them that's powerful, not the part that needs rescuing. Fifth, become interesting independently of your relationships. Develop passions, pursue goals, create meaning that doesn't require other people's participation or approval. When you master this, you become what psychologists call differentiated, able to be close without losing yourself, able to be supportive without taking responsibility for outcomes, able to love without attachment. Anxiety driving the show. People start seeking your company because of how they feel about themselves when they're with you, not because of what you do for them. You become associated with their own strength rather than their neediness. The most powerful part? You stop attracting people who need to be fixed and start attracting people who choose to be with you from a place of desire rather than dependency. Your relationships transform from transactions to connections, from need-based to want-based, from codependent to interdependent. This is what Jung called individuation, becoming who you actually are rather than who you think you need to be to earn love. And individuated people are irresistible because they offer something rare: the freedom to be yourself without having to manage their emotional experience in the process. So I ask you directly, what would happen if you became completely okay with people choosing to leave? Are you ready to stop using your helpfulness as a way to control whether people stay close to you? Because everyone watching this will divide into two groups: those who keep making themselves indispensable through function, and those who become irreplaceable through essence. Which will you be? Tell me in the comments, what's one way you've been using your availability to try to control a relationship outcome? Be honest. The people who transform are the ones willing to see their own manipulation tactics clearly. And if this disturbed you enough to change something, watch the next video. It's about why the people who need you the least love you the most. And you're not ready for what I'm going to show you about how needlessness creates the deepest intimacy possible.